In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 MLB games happening on May 15, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 MLB games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Miami Marlins versus Tampa Bay Rays. There's something about the Trop right now that just feels like a fortress. After spending all of last year exiled at Steinbrenner Field while Hurricane Milton repairs dragged on, the Tampa Bay Rays came home to St. Petersburg this April and they have not stopped winning since. Sitting at 28-14, this club is perched atop the American League East and owns the second best record in all of baseball, trailing only the Atlanta Braves. They have ripped off 6 straight series wins, just bullied the Toronto Blue Jays in back-to-back series, and pulled off something nobody in their division has done in over 30 years by winning 9 of their first 10 games against American League East opponents. That is not a hot streak, that is identity. Now the Miami Marlins come limping into town looking like a completely different animal than the team that surprised the league in the opening weeks. Their bats were red-hot to start the year, ranking near the top of the league in OPS and runs per game, but the magic has faded into a 20-24 record and a recent series loss to the Minnesota Twins. They are walking into a building that has historically chewed up right-handed contact, a dome where the air does not move, the lighting is unforgiving, and that infamous Tropicana batter's eye has been giving hitters fits for 2 decades. There is also a quiet little subplot brewing inside the Miami bullpen. Pete Fairbanks, the very same guy who spent years closing games for Tampa Bay before signing his $13 million deal in Miami last winter, is currently on the injured list with a nerve issue. That leaves Clayton McCulloch without his highest leverage arm and forces a committee approach that has not exactly been pretty. On the bump, Jesse Scholtens is not going to make anyone forget Shane McClanahan, but he does not need to. He throws strikes for a living, the Rays' athletic outfield runs down everything in the gaps, and the bridge to the back end features Nick Martinez sitting on a 1.71 earned run average along with a stack of relievers all carrying sub-3 earned run averages. This is a club at home, riding momentum, with elite pitching depth, in a stadium tilted in its favor against a road team whose offense has cooled and whose bullpen is shorthanded. As our first pick for this matchup, the Tampa Bay Rays money line is our full game side pick. 8 runs total feels almost insulting for a Friday night matchup, where both starters profile as back-of-rotation contact pitchers stepping onto a stage bigger than they are built for. Jansen Junk owns a tidy 3.25 earned run average, but pull back the curtain and the underlying numbers tell a louder story. He is surrendering hard contact at a rate north of 42%. His strikeout rate is lukewarm, and a pitcher who lives in the zone the way he does is one bad first inning away from a crooked number on the scoreboard. Jesse Scholtens is rowing the same boat, a 32-year-old journeyman making just his 3rd major league start since 2023, leaning on a 5-pitch arsenal that finds the plate but does not generate the kind of swing and miss that bails a guy out when traffic shows up. Then you look at the lineups. The Miami Marlins offense led the entire sport in OPS for the first month of the year, ranking 5th in runs per game during that stretch, and even with the recent cooldown they still have the firepower to wake up against a soft, tossing right-hander. Xavier Edwards spraying balls all over the field, Liam Hicks crushing in run-producing spots, Kyle Stowers swinging a heavy bat. This is not a sleepy lineup, just a slumping one, and slumps in fast against pitchers who pitch to contact. The Tampa Bay bats are humming too, with Junior Caminero leading the team in homers, Jonathan Aranda mashing extra base hits, and Chandler Simpson turning every infield single into pure chaos on the bases. The bullpen picture also tilts toward fireworks. Miami is rolling out a relief group missing Fairbanks, with their veteran arms patching together the late innings in front of a defense that ranks near the bottom of the league in defensive runs saved. Even Tampa Bay's bullpen, dominant as it has been overall, has been worked hard during this hot stretch, with several high-leverage arms used 3 or 4 times in the past week, and tired arms tend to leak at exactly the wrong moments. 8 is a number you hang on an ace versus an ace at Petco Park, not on two journeymen at a building where the home team has been averaging well over 5 runs a game during its run as the hottest team in the American League. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total of 8 is our full game total pick. Picture this, Friday night in Queens, two franchises that share a skyline but apparently don't share a calendar. One side of town has been throwing a party since opening day. The other side has been throwing furniture. The squad coming in from the Bronx walks into Citi Field with the kind of swagger that comes from showing up every night like clocking in for the easiest shift of a career, sitting near the top of the American League despite playing without their slugging DH and without the guy who used to be their ace last year. That isn't a fluke. That's an organization with depth that reads like a magic trick. On the other side of this thing, the home club is walking around like a luxury sports car that hit every speed bump on the way to the dealership. Their roster is currently held together with athletic tape and HR paperwork, with more than a dozen players parked on the injured list, and the names on that list aren't role players, they're cornerstones. Their all-star shortstop's calf gave out 3 weeks ago, and there's still no real timetable. Their starting catcher just went under the knife for knee surgery this morning. Their everyday center fielder is dealing with a back injury that nobody wants to put a return date on. Their prized offseason signing, a name that commanded one of the biggest contracts of the winter, has been slumping so badly that local insiders are already sketching trade scenarios on cocktail napkins. Their offense, even at full health on paper, ranks dead last in baseball in slugging and on-base percentage by margins that frankly look like printing errors. Now subtract the few healthy bats they had, and you've got a lineup that resembles a AAA starting 9 more than a contender. Meanwhile, the Bronx side keeps humming along. Their starter on the night has been pitching like somebody slipped him a script from a different century, the kind of arm that's been getting compared to Hall of Famers from the dead ball era, and not as a joke. He's painting corners, eating innings, and making opposing lineups look like they showed up to the wrong ballpark. Even the home manager has been giving pre-series quotes that sound less like a coach plotting an ambush and more like a guy trying to talk his team into believing it can hang with the big boys. Don't sleep on the historical lean either. The Subway Series tilts heavily toward the Bronx all time, and Citi Field hasn't exactly been a fortress lately for the team that calls it home. This is the league's worst offense, a mid-rotation arm, and a banged-up roster going head-to-head with arguably the hottest starter in baseball, a top 3 team in the American League, and a clubhouse that knows how to put a boot on a team's neck and leave it there for 3 hours. The number at the window reflects the gap, sure, but it doesn't fully capture the vibe. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Yankees money line is our full game side pick. Now strip away who's winning and just look at the run environment for a second, because this game might end up being one of the quieter pitchers' duels of the entire month. The arm in pinstripes is in the middle of a stretch that's been compared to a milestone nobody's touched since 1913. That isn't internet hyperbole, that's actual league office acknowledgement. He's allowed exactly 1 home run all year, his walk total looks like a typo, and he's been racking up strikeouts the way most folks collect grocery receipts. Every time he toes the rubber, opposing hitters look like they're trying to swing through fog. On the other mound, the Mets are running out a guy who used to close games in the Bronx and has quietly reinvented himself as a sturdy, ground ball-eating starter who simply refuses to give up runs even when his stuff isn't sharp. In every single start this year, he's allowed 2 earned runs or fewer, which sounds boring on paper until you realize that's basically what aces do. So you've got 2 arms, both running earned run averages that wouldn't even look real in a video game, facing 2 lineups living in completely different worlds. The Mets are sitting at the bottom of baseball in almost every hitting category that matters, with the worst OPS in the league by a margin so wide it's almost embarrassing to type out. The Yankees' offense is dangerous on paper, no question, but it's also been streakier than usual lately, capable of going quiet for stretches, especially against pitchers who get ground balls and force them to string together knocks instead of waiting for a single swing to fix everything. Add in Citi Field itself, a park that already trends neutral to pitcher-friendly, throw in May night air sitting in the mid-60s, which is exactly the temperature range where fly balls die in the gap and warning track shots stay on the warning track, and you've got the recipe for a low-scoring grind. Both bullpens have been reliable, both managers have been quick to pull starters at the first sign of smoke, and Subway Series games in this ballpark tend to play tighter than the regular season average might suggest. The book on this matchup just doesn't read like a slugfest. It reads like a chess match where the first run scored might end up being the most important run of the entire night. The kind of game where you settle in with a cold drink and watch zeros pile up like quiet dominoes. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. There's a certain feel a team gets when everything seems to be tilting their way, and right now one of these clubs is living rent-free inside that bubble. They're sitting at 30-14, the first team in all of baseball to crack the 30-win mark this season, and Truist Park has basically turned into their living room. 14 home wins in 21 tries is the kind of split that tells you the dugout believes the next inning belongs to them before the pitcher even toes the rubber. What makes this lineup so dangerous isn't a single thunderbolt at the top, it's the fact that 8 different regulars are carrying a 100-plus WRC+, and they've got that monster-style depth where anyone off the bench can flip the game. We saw that twice this past week alone, with a pinch hit double and a clutch 2-run shot off the bats of role players who probably didn't even wake up expecting to swing. The vibe inside that dugout feels different this year too. A new skipper who took over after a Hall of Fame retirement, and the players keep talking about how there are zero egos and everyone's pulling on the same rope. That's the kind of thing that doesn't show up on a stat line but absolutely matters under the lights on a Friday night. Across the way, you've got a club that's been searching for a heartbeat in the batter's box for weeks. 27th in baseball at 3.8 runs per game, only 4 regulars carrying their weight at the plate, and a lineup that has to manufacture rallies the hard way. The bigger gut punch, their best lefty is still working his way back from shoulder trouble and just threw his very first bullpen of the recovery this week, so the ace isn't walking through that door tonight. They're scrappy, sure, and they've shown bits of fight, but rolling into the toughest home park in baseball against the toughest record in baseball is just a brutal landing spot for a club averaging less than 4 runs a night. And then there's the right-hander towing the rubber for the home side. He looked rusty in his very first outing of the year, walks galore, a short night, the whole shaking off the cobwebs package. But the next time out, he was right back to vintage form, the kind whose slider used to make grown men look like they were swinging at smoke. 6 scoreless innings, 8 punch-outs, 1 lonely hit allowed, and his fastball was sitting at 96+, the same hum that had him finishing top 5 in Cy Young voting back in 2023. Behind him sits the best save percentage bullpen in the entire sport at 83.3, and a defense that grades out number 1 in the league by efficiency, which means anything that does get put in play tends to find a glove anyway. The park, the rotation, the pen, the record, the lineup depth, the clubhouse mojo, every single arrow on the dashboard is pointing in the same direction. As our first pick for this matchup, the Atlanta Braves money line is our full game side pick. This is where the math gets really fun, because both starters are climbing the mound tonight carrying serious momentum, and the bats on the road side just aren't scary right now. The right-hander going for the home team isn't the kind of arm you want to face when you're sitting at 18-25 and ranked 27th in runs scored. His most recent outing was 6 scoreless, 8 strikeouts, 1 hit, and the gas firing back into the mid-90s. Strikeouts are the magic word here, because every K is one more out that never even gets to a fielder, no soft contact bloops, no Texas leaguers, no Murphy's Law rallies. That style of pitching is straight up poison for a lineup that's already grinding just to string 2 hits together. Flip the matchup, and the lefty going for the roadside has been quietly fantastic. He just spun 7 shutout innings against a Tampa squad that was riding a 7-game winning streak, struck out 8, let his velocity tick up into the mid-90s as the night wore on. His career FIP sits at a downright filthy 2.89, and he hadn't given up a run in his big league career since his debut last September up until one ugly outing 2 starts ago. The kid has been one of the more dependable arms in a Boston rotation that's been hit hard by the injury bug. 2 strike throwers, 2 guys building velocity deeper into starts, 2 guys coming off scoreless outings. That's not exactly the recipe for a fireworks show. There's also a bullpen story humming quietly underneath it all. The home side has the league's top save rate at 83.3, so once they grab a lead late, the door slams shut and the visitors barely get a sniff. But the roadside's pen has actually been pitching its tail off too. A 2.37 team earned run average across the last 10 games with only 6 homers allowed in that stretch. Both bullpens have been holding water. Both starters are eating innings. The visiting offense is anemic. The park, while perfectly capable of fireworks on the right night, isn't really a bandbox in mid-May with that cool evening Georgia air starting to settle in. Stack it all up, the matchups, the form, the K-rates, the offensive struggles on one side, and this just doesn't feel like the kind of evening where the scoreboard operator is breaking a sweat. It's a quieter Friday than the public probably thinks. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Chicago Cubs versus Chicago White Sox. The crosstown narrative tends to write itself, and most folks are leaning the obvious way here, but pump the brakes for a second because the obvious red is usually where the value disappears. The Cubs are limping into right field after a stretch that's felt like watching a sports car sputter to a stop on the highway, dropping 4 straight before they barely escaped Atlanta on Thursday thanks to a single home run and a shutout effort from a bullpen day. The bats in May have looked downright haunted, and you can almost hear the helmet slap against the dugout rail as another rally fizzles with runners stranded. A roster that prides itself on patience and pressure has been chasing pitches and pressing in spots they normally feast on, and that's not the kind of mojo you carry into a hostile ballpark on a Friday night. Meanwhile, the Southsiders have been quietly turning into one of baseball's most surprising stories of the spring, a group that was supposed to be a doormat and instead keeps getting up off the mat swinging. Their record is dead even at 21-21, which doesn't sound thrilling on paper, but nobody outside Bridgeport thought they'd sniff .500 in May after losing their best outfielder over the winter and starting from scratch in the rotation. There's something about being underestimated all offseason that loosens a clubhouse up, like a team playing with house money every single night. Sean Burke gets the ball at home tonight, and the home part matters more than casual fans realize, since the big righty was a completely different animal inside these walls last season than he was on the road. The 6'6" frame, the mid-90s sinker, the deep mix of secondaries, all of it just plays better when he's working in front of his own crowd with his own catcher's setup and rhythm dialed in. On the other side, Edward Cabrera's underlying numbers have been quietly sliding the wrong way, his FIP creeping past 4 while the strikeout rate has been moving the opposite direction of where the Cubs hoped when they shipped a top prospect to Miami for him last winter. Crosstown games also tend to carry their own personality, the kind where the favorite gets squeezed at the window because nobody really wants to lay heavy juice on a coin flip rivalry tilt, and that creates pricing inefficiency on the underdog. Throw in a club playing inspired baseball for Will Venable and a Cubs lineup still trying to remember which end of the bat hits the ball, and grabbing the plus money side at home becomes a whole lot more than just praying for chaos. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago White Sox money line is our full game side pick. Right field has a personality that flips like a mood ring depending on the night, and this evening is shaping up like one of those mild Chicago Friday nights where the baseball travels just a little farther than the spray charts say it should. The forecast hovers in the mid-60s with the kind of easygoing breeze that doesn't fight the ball at all. And once the lights come up and the wind settles, the gaps stretch out and warning track fly balls start finding seats. 2 starters take the mound here who, despite carrying respectable surface earned run averages into this one, have been bleeding contact in ways that don't always show up in the headline numbers. Cabrera has surrendered at least 3 runs in 5 consecutive outings, the type of pattern that doesn't announce itself loudly but shows up like clockwork in totals markets. Burke just got tagged for 6 earned runs in barely 4 innings against Seattle his last time out, complete with a grand slam to right field that's probably still playing on a loop somewhere in his head. Confidence for both of these arms is wobbly right now, and that usually translates to shorter leashes, quicker hooks, and more bullpen exposure on both sides than the line wants you to expect. And speaking of bullpens, friends, this is where it gets really fun. The Cubs relief corps has been a revolving door of injuries and rehab assignments, with multiple key arms either limping back or still on the shelf, leaving the late-inning cupboard thinner than Craig Counsell would like. The South Side pen, even with Brian Hudson on a feel-good scoreless streak and Seranthony Dominguez locking down the 9th, ranks near the very bottom of the league in collective earned run average, and the bridge between starter and closer has been an absolute adventure most nights. Then there's the human wrecking ball element of this one, where Munetaka Murakami has been doing his best impression of Babe Ruth in spring loafers, already past 15 homers in his first 6 weeks and turning hanging breaking balls into postcards for the right field deck. On the other dugout, even mired in the May slump, the Cubs still pace all of baseball in on-base percentage, meaning traffic on the bases is constant even when the hits aren't falling, and that's the exact setup for crooked number innings once relievers start parading in. Crosstown rivalry energy adds its own seasoning to the gumbo, where adrenaline shows up in fastballs missing their spots and hitters swinging out of their shoes, the kind of game where you blink twice and it's already 5-3 in the 5th. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Look, there's something quietly hilarious about this matchup, and I mean that in the most respectful possible way. On one side of the diamond, you've got a club walking into the Big Brother's living room in Houston after a winter where their front office shipped out an all-star middle infielder in exchange for an outfielder who's been working through a nagging hamstring issue. Then they didn't bring back the World Series hero who used to patrol their right field. And on top of all that, their franchise shortstop is currently running a batting average that wouldn't get you out of a Friday night beer league. The Rangers come in sitting at 21-22, technically above water but barely keeping their nose dry, and they're handing the ball to a young right-hander who spent the last month looking like a guy still searching for his fastball, his command, and maybe his car keys. 5+ earned run average across his recent stretch, ankle that he tweaked earlier in the season, control issues that come and go like a bad Wi-Fi signal, and now he's stepping into a building where the home club just snapped a 9-game losing skid to the Mariners and is absolutely starving to feel like themselves again. Meanwhile, over in manager Joe Espada's dugout, the home team rolls out a starter who's pitched like a quiet Cy Young candidate through the first 6 weeks of the season. Sub-2 earned run average, 4 wins already in the bank, a changeup that disappears like steam off the Gulf Coast tarmac, and the kind of fastball that hops up on hitters who think they've got it timed. The Astros' record looks ugly on the surface, sure, 17-28, but the math behind that record is largely a story of busted-up pitching arms and a couple of bad West Coast trips, not a story of broken bats. Yordan Alvarez was the American League Player of the Month back in April with a slugging percentage that read like a misprint. Jose Altuve just crossed 900 career RBI on Wednesday night against Seattle. Christian Walker has been launching balls into the right field seats, and Isaac Paredes keeps doing that Isaac Paredes thing where he pulls everything over the short porch. The lineup isn't the problem. The bullpen has Brian Abreu locking down high leverage while Josh Hader works back to full strength, and the rotation, for one night anyway, is leaning hard on its single hottest arm. The market price this game is a pick'em coin flip, both sides at -108, and that part is genuinely strange when you stop and think about it, because when you've got the demonstrably superior starter on home turf with 2 of the most feared bats in the American League standing in the box against a road opponent that ranks 28th in baseball at scoring runs, and is handing the ball to a guy with a .485 earned run average, the coin is not actually balanced. It's weighted toward the home dugout, and the bookmakers are letting you take it without paying a premium for the privilege. That's the kind of soft number that catches your eye if you've been doing this long enough, and tonight, the soft number lives in Houston. As our first pick for this matchup, the Houston Astros money line is our full game side pick. Now let's talk about what the scoreboard probably looks like when the lights go down on Friday night in Daikin Park. That building, by the way, used to be called Minute Maid, and the name on the wall changed, but the climate inside didn't. The roof closes, the breeze stops, the air conditioning hums, and the ballpark plays surprisingly fair, leaning toward the pitcher when both arms on the mound actually know what they're doing. Tonight's matchup features 2 starters who, on their best nights, can carve up a lineup like a Thanksgiving turkey. The Houston starter has been doing exactly that all season long, a sub-2 earned run average and 4 wins built on him being one of the league's most underrated pitchers of the early calendar. But here's the wrinkle the betting market is overlooking. The Rangers starter, despite a rough overall month, just dropped 9 strikeouts on the Reds in his most recent outing and surrendered only a single earned run across 5 frames. The kid was the 2nd overall pick of the 2021 draft for a reason, and when his cutter and curveball are landing, hitters look genuinely confused up there. This isn't a matchup of an ace versus a batting practice arm. This is a matchup of an ace versus a guy who can flip the switch on any given start, and that combination historically suppresses run totals more than it explodes them. Then you stack the offenses on top of that pitching equation, and the picture gets quieter still. The Rangers rank 28th in Major League Baseball at scoring runs per game, 28th out of 30 teams, which is not a temporary slump. That's an identity at this point in the year. They traded away their all-star second baseman in November in exchange for a leadoff hitter who's been in and out of the lineup with a hamstring issue. Their shortstop is hitting under the Mendoza line. They let their longtime World Series hero outfielder walk in the offseason, and the depth behind their top 3 bats reads like a Triple-A roster on a getaway day. The Astros' offense scores better than their record suggests, sure, but they've also gone deathly quiet for entire stretches, riding the Alvarez-Altuve elevator while everyone else fights through cold streaks. The bullpens, for what it's worth, are awash. The Rangers' relief corps has been a quiet strength with an earned run average hovering around 3.5, and Houston's late innings group, when handed a lead, has been generally trustworthy. This is also a divisional rivalry game, the Lone Star Series, where these two clubs know each other's tendencies down to the count and the catcher's setup, and history says these games tend to be ground out one base hit at a time rather than blown open in the third inning. The number the books posted sits at 8.5 with the juice tilted toward the lower side, which is bookmakers speak for we kind of agree the bats stay sleepy, but we're hedging. When you've got two clubs averaging well below league average at scoring, a borderline ace on the mound, a pitcher's environment with the roof closed, and a rivalry game grinded out energy, you take what the market is quietly offering you and you let the math do its job. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.